Hello and welcome to another edition of the Tigers Down Under. I'm your host, Alex, and with me I have Logan. How are you, Logan?
Hey, Alex. Yeah, doing really well. It's been a good week again, I guess, and on the balance of things. And well, I guess it could be an even better week if all goes to plan.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we were sort of sitting here this time last week saying that this 7 days is sort of the decisive period in the season for City. And if results went our way, we could even be up by this point. But right on the cusp, I feel we're in that situation where I feel like, without kind of getting ahead of ourselves, a lot would have to go. You don't want to curse the fates and jinx things, but a lot would have to go wrong from here for us to not be promoted back to the championship.
Without a doubt, I think that we've got to be realistic here. We're 11 points, clear of safety as far as that promotion spot goes, without really thinking about the league title. And I guess if you want to think empathetically, if we were at that third position chasing second, and there was such a gap to make up, then it's all about done and dusted. And I know we've seen some strange things in our time, but I would be hazard to guess that if we were to not go up automatically from here, it would be a major miracle, not even a minor one.
Yeah, and look, and I think that's it as well. Is sort of skipping ahead here, talking about the other sides first, but you're looking at Sunderland and Lincoln in pursuit of us and Peterborough, and Peterborough being the 4 points behind us would surely be the side that they're targeting. Well, we will talk about we'll talk about the two games now. Starting with that Fleetwood game, because I think it was interesting with both of the games over the last week that we came from behind to get results in them, both against Fleetwood and Sunderland. That Fleetwood game was, I guess, the first signs that we've seen of sort of not doubts but nerves perhaps creeping into the squad, and falling behind from that goal, potentially a second goal for Fleetwood that was ruled offside. We of course had our own offside controversies. I'm pretty certain that Keane Lewis Potter goal should have stood. I understand the reasoning why it didn't, because they're saying Magennis has played at the ball, but we sort of leveled that up with the Magennis goal that was maybe partially offside. But it was a shaky game, I guess, especially in the first half. But City sort of settled down and came away with the 3 points.
Yeah, nothing calms the nerves like an early goal. And I think we saw that with the trip to Plymouth when Keane Lewis Potter scored early. And it really just set the tone for the way we were going to play, and then went on to dominate that match. And I think if you look at the Fleetwood game, it was almost the polar opposite. We're falling behind to a goal and really having to kind of chase the game. And you could say that it was very erratic, and you kind of got the feeling that particularly when they had that second goal go in before it was ruled out. Just huge concern, and as you said, there was a level of panic in the camp. But obviously, they got back in at half time and seemed to regather. And as soon as we got the equaliser and went to 1-1, there just wasn't really the feeling that we were going to lose the game, even though, as you mentioned, it did look kind of nervy. And I guess on the balance of play, if you look at it, I mean, if we were offered 4 points over the next two fixtures after the last podcast, I think we absolutely would have taken it. And so, it's been a really positive week, but that Fleetwood game in isolation, I think those 3 points, we can't understate just how big they are in the scheme of this promotion push.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, the fact that Honeyman was ruled out of that Fleetwood game, Crowley came into the 11, which was, a more than adequate replacement. We've talked many times before about the qualities that Crowley brings to the side. But I think there would have been a bit of nerves around Honeyman missing out, perhaps being a little bit under strength going into that game. And then, of course, going down to that early goal. So it was a really great testament to the side that we came back and won that game. I think, we've sort of talked about it before with, in seasons gone past, in that 12-13 promotion push, the shirt that I'm wearing now, we did sort of limp to the finish line that season. So I think the fact that we were able to come back from that goal behind to win the game was really encouraging from the players. And I've got to give a special call out as well to the winner, which I've watched it a few times now. I'm still not convinced one way or the other whether it's KLP who gets his head on it or Wilkes who gets his boot on it. It looks like it's sort of that goal that will go down in folklore, sort of like the Diamande and Hernandez bicycle kick, where you're not quite sure who's got the final touch, but great to see the desire from both of them.
Yeah, it's interesting as well to see the celebration when Kane Lewis Potter kind of peeled off, and Wilkes looked majorly disappointed in the background and kind of slammed his hands on the ground before getting up.
Yeah.
The celebration. I think that's probably a large part of it. Even he, to some extent, may have even been thinking, "What just happened?" It happened so fast, and it was a cracking finish by Kane Lewis Potter. Especially considering the fact that he's probably contending with Wilkes, almost like an extra defender. But as you've said, the fact that it went in and was the crucial goal, we'll take it. And it was just a delight to see the back of the net ripple.
And you know what? Wilkes is probably just feeling the heat because Magennis is closing in on top goal scorer for at the club. Which look, it's really impressive. We'll talk about Magennis more as well with the Sunderland game, but getting the opener against Fleetwood. It's his most prolific spell in his career at any club, both for the individual season and his entire spell at City. And he's just sort of, I wouldn't say he's come out of nowhere, but he's just sort of gradually become this consistent goal scorer or consistent option that we're beginning to rely on more and more, without you sort of noticing it. And all of a sudden we've got, scoring 3 goals in 2 games. And we sort of talked last week about, the importance of those more experienced players in the side, and he's certainly one of them.
The comeback stories of this season, I think when, hopefully when we're talking about promotion in the next couple of weeks and we reflect and do the season review, there's so much to talk about for, the story of McCann, the story of Honeyman. But as you mentioned, Magennis is just one of those players who, for a long time, I wouldn't have been disappointed at all if we were to hear that, he'd been moved on by the club. Like, just didn't really kind of feature as one of those players that was putting themselves into the forefront and really offered something up front. And the fact that not only is he prolific in the sense that he's got that goal return you mentioned, but he also just seems to be that really calm and cool head. But at the same time, he really seems to spark a lot of our plays. Like, there's the vision of the penalty that he smacked a few weeks back and just picking up the ball and racing it back to halfway. Like, he really is a driving force in the attack. So it's great to see him scoring goals, and he really has emerged as a player that seems to have the respect of his teammates as a leader in the squad. So fair play to Magennis. It's great to see him hitting the straps. And obviously Fleetwood Town is one game, but the Sunderland fixture, which I'm sure we'll get to, it really showed the class that he does have. And fair play. It's been a really good story.
Yeah, we'll get to that now. So I'll give my 3-2-1 for this game and get yours, and then we'll talk about that Sunderland game. I couldn't go past Magennis for the 3. I thought he was terrific in this one. A couple of efforts, really dangerous, really livened up the forward line as well. So easy 3 for me for that one. I've given the 2 to Ingram. I think between this and that Sunderland game, you could probably throw a hat over the 2 performances of which was the better performance from Ingram. But in both games, he's made quite a few important saves to keep us in the games at important times. And it's sort of, he goes a bit under the radar sometimes in terms of his efforts in games. Because yes, okay, we've had some games where the opposition hasn't managed a shot on target, but you kind of think the context, talking about comeback players, hey, Ingram's another one where he coming into this season, he was second choice keeper and just sort of got that run at the start of the season and really has kind of held onto it with both hands. So he was the 2 votes for me. And then I've gone KLP for the 1, presuming that he got the goal there at the end, getting that winner and really should have had a goal earlier in the game as well. It was a really terrific finish into the top corner. Really unfortunate to have that one ruled out for offside on Magennis, but given KLP the 1 vote.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I went similar, and I think that the rap that you've just given Ingram has kind of made me question whether I've got my 3-2-1s correct. You did remind me of how crucial he was, but I had Magennis for 3, and I put KLP for 2, and then Ingram for 1. I think it was largely just the influence that KLP seemed to have, particularly at the start of that second half. I know there was that turn that he did where he kind of let the ball roll past him and ended up creating a huge chance for us, which we didn't score off. But he just seemed to be really lively. And, as we tried to play our way back into the contest, it almost felt like every time the ball was at his feet, something was going to happen. And I guess that's what we really need to look for from KLP. Just that young live wire, lots of energy, and asking lots of questions of the defense. So I had him penciled down for 2. I think, as you said, Ingram was great for 1, but any order between those 3 would pretty much sum it up. But there were some great performances.
Yeah, definitely. And look, talking about KLP, Sunderland 2-2 draw. First minute of the game, just about. Wilkes sort of running through on goal. KLP off to his left, could basically play him through for a one-on-one with the keeper. And you sort of talked a little bit before about the importance of an early goal in games like this. Would have got us off to the perfect start. So a little bit frustrating that the KLP wasn't found in that moment.
Absolutely, but I guess the irony is it was also one of the best games for Wilkes as far as providing 2 assists. So
yes, that is true.
I guess
it's hard to call him too greedy when he's done that. Yeah,
could have been 3 assists. So I mean, look, Malik Wilkes is a young player as well, and I think that's kind of hard to forget because we've got that the starlet in KLP who is I guess our signature young player, but you do forget about the the youth that is in the squad across the board. And Wilkes has a lot to learn in his game as he becomes a more polished striker. And as you mentioned, like we table him as our most prolific striker, but when you look across the board and see the goal return that Magennis has got, and closely followed by KLP, whilst he is kind of the standout, it's you can almost throw a blanket across the 3 of them now. And so, look, as you mentioned, crucial chance. Would have been great to see Malik Wilkes, show some maturity and roll that ball off to KLP, but we know what happened the rest of the story in the game, and Wilkes, obviously showed patches that he can pass when he needs to, and some of them are more impressive, cross deliveries than I guess the more simple pass offs that we would have liked to have seen. But he's growing in stature, and KLP, I'm sure would have had a quiet word to him at training, and I back him to get it right if that position presents itself again.
Yeah, definitely. And look, as you said, there are 2 great crosses from Wilkes into Magennis for the goals. Coming from behind twice to equalise in the game, I guess sort of a controversial penalty, pretty soft penalty really in terms of the potential handball on Elder. But going in at halftime 2-1 down, pulling it back to 2-2, and I get the point of view as well that we sort of held on at the end because Sunderland did have a couple of really good chances, hit the crossbar, but it did feel like before KLP went off that there were a few options or opportunities for him to get a goal as well. He was starting to find a bit of space as well. So it was a really interesting end to the game. I thought there was a lot of chances for both sides to come away with a winner, but I think ultimately with the position that we're in the league, a draw in this game is almost as good as a win, I guess, with the results going the way they did elsewhere, and knowing we couldn't go up even if we did win this game. It was always going to come down to that Lincoln game. Denying Sunderland the win, just getting one game closer to the end of the season with a point each out of this one, I think was almost just as important.
I think I said last week that the Fleetwood game was the one that scared me more. And I guess as it turned out, the fact that we were able to get those 3 points in that game and have results go away with Sunderland dropping more points and then being able to get the draw, I think that after that Fleetwood game, it really emphasised the fact that just a point against Sunderland would be a huge thing and a huge challenge for them. I think that the mountain that's been created for them to climb, the fact that we didn't allow them 3 points on us in that game and being able to claw our way back in twice, it's all but secured. It really is a huge 1 point. The fact that it stopped them, getting all 3, and I think that they'll be bitterly disappointed. More so because I think they will feel that dropping the points at the KCON is almost the final nail in the coffin for them as far as automatic goes.
Yeah, and I think especially having taken the lead twice, it would have really stung them to not be able to hold on either time. But I saw the stat courtesy of Rick on Twitter, who's sort of provided a few of the stats we've used here over the last few weeks. But it's really fascinating when you consider the fact that since 2007, we've got 1 win against Sunderland, which was this season on penalties. If you discount the games under Steve Bruce, so Steve Bruce managed 4 wins and a draw. We don't quite know what the secret was. I mean, he clearly loved a game against Sunderland, but when you take those games out of the equation, to have only that one win coming this season on penalties in the EFL Trophy is a remarkable stat against a side that, you know, we've sort of talked a few times about. It almost feels like we always play them them in Burnley, I guess, in those relegation games, and we always seem to come away losing the game. So don't know what it is about Sunderland, but it always seems to be a pretty tricky fixture for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a bogey team that that has created some incredibly painful memories for us over the years. But
yeah.
I don't know what it was. I just this particular fixture wasn't a game that I was incredibly nervous about, and I think it's probably got to do with the fact that we did have that safety net, and also the fact they'd been in incredibly poor form. But I guess true to form, knowing that they're playing City, then they were able to lift and almost had the wood over us. But as we said, to fight back and get that point, it was just massive.
So just before we move on to the performances or results from the sides around us, I'll grab your 3-2-1 votes for this one first, and then I'll give mine.
Yeah, I think the clear-cut one here is Magennis with the 2 goals. He seemed incredibly influential. I had Wilkes for 2, I think, based on the fact that he provided the 2 assists. And then, again, you touched on it earlier with Ingram. I think Ingram probably sneaks a point here as well. He was critical in keeping the result the way it was. But, yeah, I guess, that would be my 3-2-1. I think you could probably make a case for Regan Slater as well. But, yeah.
Yeah. So look, it's a fair shout on Wilkes. I've gone Magennis for the 3 as well, just like you. I've actually given Slater the 2. I thought he was really, really solid in midfield again. That first goal, I think it was the cross field ball to Wilkes to set up the chance for Magennis's first. I thought was fantastic. And I guess I'm a bit slanted to giving him a bit more recognition just because he's one that has sort of won City fans over so dramatically in the last few weeks that it's a really terrific display to see from him to kind of be keeping these consistent performances going. So I gave Slater the 2 votes there, and then Ingram for the 1 vote. I think especially in that last 5 minutes of the game when he made that really terrific save at the near post was fantastic. So got the 1 vote for me for that one. So I guess a few pretty crucial results going our way over the weekend and midweek, with Blackpool beating Sunderland on the weekend and then losing to Rochdale, which was just about the perfect combination of results for us. It sort of kept Sunderland a bit further back, but then Blackpool lost to a side that obviously can't do us any damage in Rochdale. Paul McShane doing his bit again. And then Posh beat Northampton in the early game on Saturday morning, but then lost to Gillingham Wednesday morning, I think. So another great result there as well, because, I guess inevitably, once promotion is secured, we'll start to sort of turn attention to the potential of winning the title, and those Peterborough results start to become more critical. But I guess it leaves the state of play in a position where a win against Lincoln confirms promotion. I think as long as if we draw the game with Lincoln, as long as Sunderland also drop points, that's enough. But then obviously a loss to Lincoln, and I guess we can throw in here the discussion about that game with Lincoln. Obviously a loss to Lincoln is the only result that really counts against us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think Lincoln do seem to have turned a little bit of a corner after a drastic form slump. But just looking at those fixtures for the other teams run in, I think Charlton seemed to be an incredibly a dangerous fixture for Lincoln in what would be required for them. We also know that Blackpool and Sunderland have to play each other. So just with those considerations in mind, it just looks like, whilst it's an 11-point gap at the moment between us and safety, looking at the tricky fixtures for those teams in third and fourth, I think almost by means of fixtures of who plays who, that 11-point buffer itself seems to me to be, a bridge too far, unless, one of those teams is able to win every remaining game, which, looks incredibly unlikely and would take some kind of momentum shift. I mean, you could argue that Lincoln are probably the best suited to be able to do that, given the fact that they're the informed team. But you ask, Blackpool are also a team that's informed, Peterborough are informed, and the fact that they all seem to run into each other is just an incredible bonus for us at this stage of the season. Yeah,
absolutely. That game on the 2nd of May, Peterborough against Lincoln. if by some circumstance we haven't secured automatic promotion by then, I think that's a really critical game, which is when we're playing, if I can find it, Wigan. It's a pretty big game. I think obviously Wigan's in a bit of good form, but that weekend is sort of our fallback option, I guess, because you would expect obviously Peterborough and Lincoln taking points off each other in that one. It really does help us with the fact, as you say, I mean, Blackpool playing Sunderland again as well. So there's a few really key fixtures in the run-in that will certainly help results go our way.
Yeah,
sorry, yeah.
Oh, and I guess the second equation that then it becomes for us is, well, do we start looking at the title race and what that could actually mean, given Peterborough's run home sees them play Charlton. They play Doncaster twice, who, I don't think they would fully rule themselves out of that playoff push, but it's certainly in the conversation. And then as well, they find themselves facing Lincoln on the 2nd of May, as you said. So, I mean,
Charlton's in great form, yeah.
The 4-point gap over Peterborough at the moment, that may only require one more win, and we could potentially go up as champions. So, it's an incredibly interesting, picture, and the fixtures seem to, at this point in time, really favour City.
Yeah, well, so just before we preview that Lincoln game, we have I did make the announcement on Twitter and the Facebook group, but I'll also share a little promotion picture that we've thrown together now. We are we're all going to try and get into the Cheers Bar in Sydney. Anyone in Sydney who has been to a previous game, whether it was the FA Cup final or the promotion, the playoff final against Sheffield Wednesday a couple of years ago, would know Cheers Bar well. They're a great spot in the city on George Street, really easy to get to. Who are going to have the game on upstairs for us to watch. So hopefully we can get some City supporters there to watch that game starting at midnight Saturday evening, I guess, or Sunday morning, the way you want to look at it. I know Liverpool are the early game, and it's a typically Liverpool heavy bar, but by then they'll have sort of started to clear out. I don't think there's anything too big in the Premier League to kind of clash with it. So it shouldn't be too busy, but I'll be there pretty early on in the evening. So it would be great to see some City supporters getting out there. I'll tweet this image out and put it up in the Facebook group as well after this. So it would be good to try and see a few people there. To look, it's not that often that we get to watch City potentially secure promotion. So it's a pretty big event if we can try and secure it this weekend. I mean, it would be a shame. I was sort of noticing with the way that the fixtures fall, it would be a shame if we were to, for instance, draw with Lincoln, but Sunderland were to win. And then during the next midweek, when we don't actually have a game, if Sunderland then lose the game or drop points, and that sort of secures our promotion when we're not really playing. And it's sort of, it's a bit anticlimactic, I think, if that was to happen.
And incredibly uncharacteristically City-like, the fact that we're looking with 3 fixtures to go, thinking, we could become champions early, or we could secure promotion early. Just it doesn't seem right. So look, I think we've been supporting City long enough to know that there's probably another twist or two in the tail, but certainly an intriguing prospect that either the return to the championship via automatic spot or title winners. It would be incredibly great either way. If we would have to go through the playoff route at this stage, I think there would be some incredibly disappointing podcasts ahead, and I think that the angst would creep in and be a huge cause for concern. So let's hope that it doesn't come to that. I think we should be fine, but yeah, it's going to be exciting 3 games to watch regardless.
Yeah, and look, I think it's an interesting one. We were sort of talking last week on how important this week is and how it could swing one of 2 ways. And when we were down 1-0 at halftime to Fleetwood, I did have that real sense of, if we do go on to lose this game and then lose to Sunderland, if we're sort of having a dip in form, all of a sudden that promotion picture looks entirely different. And it is a case of sliding down the table potentially into the playoffs. And we sort of know historically how sides that are out of form and fall into the playoffs tend to perform, which is that they struggle to even get through the semi-finals. So that turnaround against Fleetwood, that draw against Sunderland were absolutely vital, and now set us up in a really great position against Lincoln, who themselves have won the last 3 in a row. So they're not slouches at this stage of the season. They had a really bad dip in form over the last couple of months, but they seem to have got things together now. So they're going to be quite a tough opponent.
Absolutely, and I think that you take 3 points there, then it's all but over. And I think that that's kind of the mentality that it seems with the City group. And you hear McCann, say with the cliches week in week out that we're just worried about the next performance. And I know that that's arguably the most stated comment in football, but it really does seem to be that they are sticking to that mantra in the camp, and every single fixture does seem to be, a game that they are focused on and are playing one game at a time. So they'll be ready for the Lincoln fixture, and it will be a great test for, as you said, to play one of our, top 6 opponents in what could be an incredibly crucial clash as far as the title goes.
So Honeyman did come back into the side against Sunderland. I don't think there was really any injury issues or anything like that coming out of that Sunderland game. It's probably an easy question to answer, but presumably we'd just go in with an unchanged 11.
Yeah, I can't see any reason why they would tinker with it at this point. I think McCann seems to know what's working and is very settled on his squad. I can't anticipate any changes. If there was, I think it would only be to kind of look at the Wigan fixture as a potential must win, but I just don't know why that would happen, given the fact that we're away to a top 6 opponent that if we win that game, it's either the title secured or our automatic spot is secured. So I think we'll be throwing the kitchen sink at Lincoln, so to speak, and I wouldn't anticipate any tinkering.
We did see, I think Smallwood came back for 2 cameo appearances in the games against Fleetwood and against Sunderland, which is great to see. I mean, look, having essentially a fully fit squad at this stage of the season is fantastic. It gives us a lot of options off the bench. And I think we sort of talked early in the season when those rules were changed around the number of substitutes, that it really does play into our hands. When you look at, I think it was against Sunderland when we did a triple substitution where I think it was White, Smallwood, and somebody else, I think, all came on at the same time. And it's just, amazing when you've got that sort of squad at your disposal at this level. It really does help things. And, and maybe it's a discussion for next week if automatic promotion is secured, but I really do think this is a fantastic opportunity to push on for the title. And, it's 55, 60 years since our last title. I do think it means something. Even being League One, I think it would be a huge achievement.
Certainly to the players, and without a doubt, Grant McCann. I think what better way than to kind of re-ascertain your feelings with the fans. If he said, judge me on next season, and then comes and delivers a title in League One. That's as far as that goes. That's 100% great, and you can't really do anything else. I think there's a lot of players in this squad as well who would never experience winning a title as well. So there's so much to play for. Even though, as we said, promotion almost seems all but sealed. I'd be really surprised if anything short of a title at this point now, certainly amongst the playing group, would be falling short.
Do you think as well, and I guess this is sort of looking ahead a little bit, but do you think as well, if automatic promotion was to be secured this weekend, the club would start to look at contract situations for next season? I mean, we haven't seen a whole lot of movement at the moment on extensions for guys like Alfie Jones or even like a Doherty or I think even Magennis is out of contract at the end of this year. I think we've got an option for an additional year, but guys like that, it'd be interesting to see if the club does sort of start to, traditionally over the years, we kind of go to the final day of the season not knowing what division we'll be in, but it'd be a bit refreshing to know a little bit in advance and be able to start to make those moves.
It absolutely would be. I think the concern is that, I guess, there's been so much kind of interesting rumors about clubs for sale and whether we're still going to have the same owners. There's so many variables behind the scenes that make that difficult to predict. What I will say, and I know Dean Windass has been kind of vocal the last week, talking about how this City team has surprised him by all expectations, and how he said, with all due respect to this particular playing group, to go up into the championship and stay there, it requires a better squad. Or I don't know if he used the squad. I think he meant better players to an extent. So, I mean, the first question would be, what players in this squad are considered quality championship players that fit the realms of the budget, which again, we don't know what that will be. We don't know if the ownership will be the same, which will affect that directly. There's so many things to consider. I think that you're probably looking at this squad, and I think that you would be able to make your case for probably 6 or 7 of them are absolute championship quality. And then there'd be a school of thought and an argument to say, well, this is the playing group that, walked League One in so many ways. Are they championship quality? Well, they should be given a chance to demonstrate that, particularly the likes of the younger players that do, sit in the squad. So a lot to consider there. I really will enjoy, and I'm sure we'll relish the chance to kind of anticipate and pick our team for next season, and who's there, who are the players that we would be targeting and look to get in. But it would be nice to see some of those players, if McCann is settled and if he's the guy that's there next year, if he has got his eyes on particular players that are part of his championship plans. Well, absolutely, let's get those contracts signed early and let's build a core and not have any kind of situation like when we played Leicester with a tiny squad in the Premier League, or a debacle like that, which I think we've learned a lot from. It would be really nice to see, but there's just so many more questions that need answering before we even get to that.
Look, I mean, it was interesting. I think that this previous summer was the first time in a while that we've really made transfer moves quite early, when we brought in Coyle and Emmanuel, Smallwood. I think Doherty was a bit later to arrive, but there was quite a few signings done pretty early in the window, which was great to see. Look, I'd sort of said a few weeks ago that I thought that of that squad, I think really a capable championship striker was the main missing piece. And I mean, with no disrespect to him, I think whilst Magennis has shown some really great form, I certainly think he should be given every chance to prove himself at championship level, because of course he did score goals for us last season. I do think we'd probably still be needing to look for a slightly better striker at that level. But I look at guys like, I look at Doherty and I look at Alfie Jones, I look at Greaves, I look at Elder, who had a reasonable season, a serviceable season last year as well, and Ingram, Coyle as well, potentially as well, and Burke, of course. So there's a lot of players there who can definitely do a job at championship level. Now, then the question just becomes, are we trying to build a squad that can just do a job, or are we trying to build a squad or top up the squad with players to really go on and try and push for promotion next season? So that's sort of, and knowing the owners, the answer is probably the former. It's probably just going to be just do what we can to survive, but they could surprise us. They surprised me this season with the signings that we made and the ambition that they showed to just get straight back out of the division. So look, it's, as you say, it's going to be really interesting. There's water to go under the bridge first. And this is definitely more a discussion for the next couple of weeks on the podcast potentially, but you sort of start to turn your mind to those sorts of things, and you can't help but sort of consider it. So look, I think ultimately, first thing is we've got to get over Lincoln and get the 3 points against them. Are you confident of the win, or how are you feeling about the game?
I think it's going to be a really difficult one. I think that with Lincoln flying the way they are, and also kind of playing themselves back into form, and knowing that they need to kind of secure that playoff spot. Although I think the playoffs is all but secured for them. Whether they've ruled themselves out of automatic promotion or not, I'm not so sure. I think that it would be a huge feat for them to be able to get that second spot from this point forward. I think it'll be tough. I'm anticipating a draw. I think it'll kind of be a fixture where both teams will go at each other, and I think we'll end up cancelling each other out. It's certainly not a fixture that scares me. I think it'll be a great game to watch, but without too much pressure on the result. I think 3 points, 3 points almost secures us the title, and I think that's what the mentality that we'll be taking to Lincoln, and that will be, an exciting spectacle for us to see, and as we watch, see how the players approach that game.
Yeah, and I mean, interestingly, Sunderland at the same time will be playing Accrington Stanley, who, they did lose to Rochdale, who seems to be beating a lot of teams at the moment. But they took points off Blackpool in a 0-0 draw. They beat Doncaster. They beat Oxford. So they're in reasonable form themselves. So there's every chance that a draw against Lincoln is enough. And of course, the players can't be going into the game thinking that, but as fans, we've kind of got that, hopefully, a little bit of a safety buffer that Sunderland don't have the easiest of games themselves. So, look, it's going to be a really interesting night. There'll be an eye on both games, I'm sure, just to see what's happening. And hopefully, as you say, hopefully we can get the 3 points in that one. I'm probably with you. I think it'll be a pretty tight game. I mean, were both our previous games this season 0-0, I think, in the
Yeah.
cup and in the in the league. So clearly two sides that match up reasonably well on each other. I think it could be won by the odd goal, maybe a 1-0 or a 2-1 potentially, but I wouldn't be shocked by a 0-0 in this one. So yeah, look, it'll be a really interesting one. But yeah, lots to look forward to, and then hopefully a very celebratory podcast this time next week. So thank you for joining me this week, Logan.
My pleasure, Alex. I think that one question that we might need to wrestle with and potentially do a whole podcast series on is George Honeyman championship ready. I think that
that's going to be very interesting.
When we speculate on players for next season, I think that, as we mentioned, the different stories and plot lines that have happened this season, he was certainly underwhelmed in the championship last time, but I don't know. I figure that there could be a little bit more to George Honeyman's story.
Absolutely. I think there's a few players that definitely have a point to prove in the championship next season for us. Wilkes probably another one who, he started to get going a little bit towards the end of at the end of last season, but he'd certainly be hungry to prove himself. Was let go by Leeds. Barnsley didn't want him either. Look, I think there's going to be a few interesting stories there as well. So that could be a great podcast. Maybe we can do that over the summer and look at those sorts of players and who has a point to prove. But yeah, look. Thanks everyone for listening into this episode. And hopefully we'll be back this time next week to talk about a fantastic win against Lincoln that secures promotion. Just before we go, I did just get a comment from Red Tiger saying, pity no fans for the final home game. And, look, it is a bit of a shame. You look at the Premier League being able to get fans in for their final two games just because I think their season finishes a week or two later. I've heard things about potentially City fans travelling to Lincoln to celebrate a potential promotion, and look, if they can do that safely, then emphasis on that word, but all power to them. I think it'd be great to have some sort of communal feel for this game, and that's why I'm looking forward to getting to Cheers here in Sydney so much, because it is a game that being able to watch and celebrate with other City supporters is the main thing, because this season's felt so isolated and separated that. It would be nice to get some sort of communal joy out of this game.
And I guess another very City-like thing, that if we were to win out a title, trust it to be the first title in 60-odd years that just happens to be behind closed doors with no fans. So a very, very City-like indeed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, anyway, no worries. Thank you everyone for listening, and thank you for that comment as well. And we will be back this time next week. Come on, City.